Hi friends, welcome to Beautifully Bookish Bethany. In today's video, I'm going to be suggesting 16 Sapphic romances. These range from YA to adult and have protagonists at a variety of different ages, but they all feature ladies and non-binary folks finding love. I feel like the Sapphic romance sometimes gets short shrift, although we are beginning to see more and more of them, which is very exciting. There's a lot of people who read male-male romances, but what about the Sapphic romances? We need those too. Some of these characters are lesbians, some of them are bisexual. We've got some indie published titles, some traditionally published titles, some steamy romances, and some not steamy romances. So a little bit of something for everyone. But if you're looking for some romances to put on your TBR with Sapphic relationships, I've got you covered. Here are 16 that I would recommend. And honestly, I'm so pleased that there were this many of them when I started looking. There's even a couple I didn't put on this list because I felt like the romance elements were played too small a role in the story, but like look how many there are. It's very exciting. I've got 4 YA Sapphic romances to recommend to you today. The first one is The Princess and the Fangirl by Ashley Poston. This is adorable. It's part of the Geekerella series, which I'm a huge fan of. It's kind of modern, nerdy retellings of fairy tales. This one, I can't think of the official name for it. I don't know why, but it's about royalty swapping places, like where a peasant swaps places with a royal. Somebody in the comments is gonna know what I'm talking about. But this follows 2 characters who are kind of doppelgangers of each other. One of them is a famous actress who plays a princess on this popular sci-fi television show, and the other one is just a fan of the television show. There's a mistaken identity, and then they end up swapping places and both find love. One of those relationships is a Sapphic romance, and it's just a lot of fun. I think this entire series is a blast, so if you haven't read it, I would recommend. My next YA pick is She Drives Me Crazy by Kelly Quinlan. This was one of my favorite books the year that it came out. It's a super cute kind of enemies to lovers with a fake dating element to it between a cheerleader and a basketball player. The basketball player has recently broken up with her girlfriend and is still grieving that loss and wants to get back at her and does so by having this cheerleader fake date her in return for something. And so they don't really like each other at the beginning, but slowly they do fall for each other. One thing that I really love about this, especially as a YA Sapphic romance, is that it deals with the toxicity of the relationship between her and her original girlfriend and has her go on this journey of realizing that she needs to heal from that relationship before she's really ready to be able to be there for somebody else in a new relationship. I just think this is handled in such a healthy way, and it's also fun and cute, and I really loved it. One of my favorite YA Sapphic romances. Another excellent Sapphic enemies to lovers option is Tell Me How You Really Feel by Amina May Safi. I loved this. It was so cute. And it's got a prickly heroine, which I am a fan of. This one is a really fun and smart romantic comedy following 2 young queer women of color falling for each other that are opposites, and one of them hates the other because of a misunderstanding. The other thing that I really like about this is that it questions assumptions that are made about popular pretty girls. One of the characters is very popular in school, she's classically pretty, she's an overachiever, and so everybody assumes that she's straight when she's actually not. Meanwhile, the other character is very prickly and introverted and thinks that she's like a real artist and whatever, and hates this popular girl. Both of the characters have immigrant families, and so that ends up playing a role in the story. I just really love this a lot. It follows 2 queer young women of color. It's part coming of age story, part rom-com of them finding each other. Highly recommend. And the final book on my list that is YA is Her Royal Highness by Rachel Hawkins. This is the second book in a series and follows a side character from the first book, Finding Love, and I really like this a lot. This is a good one if you're looking for a book with a bisexual main character, and it's also got, you know, kind of this like enemies to lovers, opposites type thing. Maybe I just like that trope, especially in a Sapphic relationship. That kind of a tension dynamic works for me. me. This was just really cute. It's also got a plus size main character, so if you're looking for that representation in addition, you'll get it here. Moving on, I have 12 adult recommendations for you. And I'll begin with a couple of novellas. First up is Once Ghosted, Twice Shy by Alyssa Cole. I love Alyssa Cole, and honestly, this entire Reluctant Royals series is excellent, but this one has a sapphic relationship. It's not very long, but it's really cute. It's set in New York City, and it follows two women who are having kind of a second chance romance, and it goes back and partly explores how they got together in the first place, and then them having another chance at love, and it's adorable. It is definitely a little bit steamy. I think this is a fantastic novella. Another novella I recommend is Mrs. Martin's Incomparable Adventure by Courtney Milan. This is a sapphic historical romance, which is already unusual, but even more so is the fact that it features older characters. One of the heroines is, I believe, 70, and the other one is, I think, in her 60s. So if you're looking for something featuring much older characters with a sapphic relationship, I think this one is excellent. It's really cute. Mrs. Bertrice Martin, a widow some 73 years young, has kept her youthful-ish appearance with the most powerful of home remedies, daily doses of spite, regular baths in man tears, and refusing to give so much as a single damn about her terrible nephew. Then proper correct Miss Violetta Beauchamps, a sprightly young thing of 9 and 60, crashes into her life. The terrible nephew is living in her rooming house, and Violetta maybe, wants him gone. So they kind of go on an adventure together, trying to mess with the terrible young nephew and end up falling in love. It's really sweet, and it is also a little bit steamy, which I like. I am here for showing that people who are older can also have active sex lives. I think that's great. So would recommend this one. It's a great novella. The final novella on this list is Mangoes and Mistletoe by Adriana Herrera. This is a divisive one. We had this as a book club pick in December for my Patreon book club, and people were very split on it. Some people were not fans, but I really liked it. It's another one that's kind of this enemies to lovers romance. It is very quick, I will say. If you need a lot of time for a relationship to develop, these may not be for you. I guess for a novella, Once Ghosted, Twice Shy works better for people who need more time for a relationship to develop because it is a second chance romance and you're kind of seeing their history together. Both of these, they meet and get together pretty quickly, which I know is not everybody's cup of tea, but they worked for me. This is also a foodie romance. It's got two queer women of color who are on a baking competition TV show and end up falling for each other. I liked it. Again, maybe not for everyone, but I was a fan. It's got a little bit of holiday cheer in there. The food sounded delicious and made me very hungry. I think it's worth a look. Moving right along, let's talk about some full-length sapphic romances. First up is one of my favorite romances of 2022. That is Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. I loved this so much. Y'all know, as I've said, I love a prickly heroine, an unlikable female character, and that is definitely what we get in one of our characters. Not gonna be everybody's cup of tea, but I loved her and I saw her for who she truly was. She's got a heart of gold buried under there, under all of that trauma. And then of course her lady love interest is a bisexual single mom with kind of a pinup style. I love that we have a more leaning plus size heroine, and I just really, really love their journey together. It was sweet and sexy. This one does get steamy, and there is a lot of family drama going on as well. So again, I know some people are like, just give me the straight up romance. I don't need all the extra. I like the extra. I like all of the plot of the family stuff that's going on. Delilah Green is back in her hometown to shoot her sister's wedding. She's almost estranged from her family, has very complicated relationship with them, but while there, she ends up meeting up with her sister's BFF, and they kind of form a connection. So of course there's going to be some drama, but I was really, really rooting for them to be together, and I just loved this. It was great. Then if you're looking for something that includes a genderqueer character, you might try The Perks of Loving a Wallflower by Erica Ridley. I've said this before, but despite what the cover may appear to be, now granted, the cover is beautiful, it's a stunning cover, it just does not accurately represent who the characters in the book are. We have a curvy plus-size blonde bombshell, and then a genderqueer, mask-leaning con artist but for good. Given the time period, the choice was to have that character use she, her pronouns and express her kind of complicated gender identity in other ways, which, you know, people might have mixed feelings about. But I really liked this a lot. It was a lot of fun. It's got adventures and shenanigans and going undercover, and I loved their dynamic. I loved the banter between these two. It really worked for me. I like that we have a super nerdy plus size heroine on one end and then a character who does different disguises for reasons. I'm not going to say too much more about the plot. I have loved all the books that I've read in this series, but this one I thought was excellent. Before we move on to some contemporary recommendations, I do have two more historicals for you, and these are actually by the same author, and I love both of them. There is The Lady's Guide to Celestial Mechanics and The Care and Feeding of Waspish Widows, both by Olivia Waite. I loved both of these. This one I think is a little longer than it needs to be, but I still really love it. This is another one too that has older heroines. One of them is a bisexual widow who has a grown child and is finding love with a spinster who is a beekeeper. It's great. I really, really enjoyed it. And then this one has a little bit of an age gap, but I think it works. It also features a widow, a wealthy widow who does embroidery and crafting arts, and another heroine who is an astronomer. I really enjoy Olivia Waite's books. I think they're fantastic. They're a good blend of putting in historical detail and delivering these steamy sapphic romances. This one doesn't get steamy until pretty far into the book. We don't even see them kiss until a little more than halfway, partly because of their age. It is definitely a slow burn, but it does get steamy in the back half. So yes, I would recommend both of these. The rest of my recommendations are contemporary, and I don't have physical copies of them. First is one that I have read most recently. I had an advanced copy of this from NetGalley, and I believe it's about to come out if it hasn't come out yet. This is The Fiancé Farce by Alexandria Bellefleur. I freaking loved this so much. If you are looking for a rom-com, low-angst sapphic romance with an excellent setup and kind of a modern take on a marriage of convenience, this is perfect. It's got two heroines who are kind of opposites. One of them is this kind of nerdy bookseller who, to get her family off her back, has made up a fake girlfriend, naming her after a woman who is one of her favorite romance cover models. But then, of course, she's at her cousin's wedding, and who should show up but that cover model? Oh God, no. She's worried she's going to be outed, but instead the model goes along with it because, as it turns out, she needs to get married in order to get her inheritance. And so they come up with a deal where they'll get married and it'll help save an indie bookstore and it'll work out for both of them. But of course they end up falling in love along the way. Listen, this was just so delightful. I was hoping it would live up to the cover, and at least for me, it really did. It is pretty low angst. Most of the conflict comes from outside the couple. They have really fantastic communication with each other, and we see the slowly building relationship between the two of them, which I adored. This is one that does not have very many steamy scenes, but the ones that it does have are very good. So just gonna leave you with that. My next suggestion is one that's a little bit out of season, but I'm throwing it on here anyway. This is Season of Love by Helena Greer. I really enjoyed this. I will say it is more hard-hitting than I was expecting. It does deal with some difficult topics, and there's quite a bit going on in here, but it's also really lovely, and the premise is pretty funny. A young Jewish woman who is an artist who's actually engaged to somebody else ends up inheriting a stake in her great aunt's Christmas farm, and while going to her aunt's funeral and dealing with all of that, ends up connecting with the plus-size manager of the Christmas tree farm, who has also inherited a stake in it. The manager is very prickly and does not like her at first, but they slowly develop a relationship and rapport. This is one that is also pretty slow burn, but I liked it. My main complaint with this was just that I wanted to feel more of the visceral connection between the two of them. I don't know that we get a lot of that. It always feels a little bit arm's length to me, but I still really enjoyed it, and if you're looking for a cute sapphic holiday adjacent romance, I think this is one to try. Oh my gosh! How did I forget? I said 16. I forgot about one of my other favorite sapphic holiday romances. Okay, hold that thought. We're making this 17 recommendations because y'all, Kiss Her Once for Me by Alison Cochrane. Oh, this is so good. I love this so much. This is another one that is just rom-com gold, and I desperately want Netflix to make this into a movie because this would make such a good holiday movie. So it follows a young woman living in Portland whose life is kind of falling apart. And a year ago, she had the perfect kind of meet cute in a bookstore and day and night with this woman who then broke her heart the next day. You slowly get to learn more and more about this throughout the course of the book, right? Now her rent is going up, she can't afford her apartment anymore, everything is falling to pieces when the landlord of the place where she works, the coffee shop where she works, makes her an offer. He needs to get married in order to get his inheritance. I guess this is the way you do a modern marriage of convenience, isn't it? He needs to get married in order to get his inheritance, and he offers her a marriage of convenience where he'll give her part of the money. She agrees and goes as his fiance to family Christmas, whereas it turns out his sister is the woman who broke her heart. Wah wah. But, you know, don't feel too bad for him because as it turns out, he is secretly in love with his sister's non-binary best friend. So there's a whole love quadrangle going on here. I thought this was so much fun, and I really, really want to see it turned into a holiday movie. Next up, we have Devon and Chris Plan a Wedding by Chensia C. Higgins, another rom-com. I like a Sapphic rom-com. I think this works. This one is fun too if you like reality television. It follows two women who go on a reality TV show where the premise is that you're paired up with somebody and you have to convince your friends and family that you're getting married and like plan a wedding and everything. So one of them is doing this as a way to come out to her conservative Catholic mother as being queer. And then we have another character who's kind of given up on love, and they find love through the process. It's really cute and it's really fun. So if you're a Love is Blind fan, this might be the one for you. For another very cute, quiet, low angst Sapphic romance, I'm gonna recommend The Girl Next Door by Chelsea M. Cameron. This follows a woman in her 20s who has to move back home and the prickly fisherwoman next door that she falls for. It's adorable. It's this really soft little small town romance, and there's not a lot of conflict. It's just sweet. It's very sweet, very cute. If you're looking for that, I would recommend. My final recommendation for this video is Femme Like Her by Fiona Zeddy. It's an indie published Black love romance written by a Black author. I'm gonna read a little bit from my Goodreads review because it's been a minute since I read this one. I am not always the biggest fan of romances where the characters get hot and heavy with each other right away, but in this case, I think it works because it's really showing the emotional growth arcs of the character. It's a single perspective romance, which is also not always my thing, but again, here, I think it really works. So it follows a woman who has been hurt before by a femme lesbian, and so only dates studs, which is a word for a Black masc-presenting lesbian, so she won't date femmes. But Scotty is a femme and blows her away. They have instant chemistry, despite what our main character thinks she wants. What I said in my review was I loved the relationship between Nyla and Scotty and how the author set them both up for arcs of character growth through the course of the book. And this wasn't afraid to tackle thorny issues, like assumptions that a lesbian couple should always be one feminine person and one masculine person, which does not have to be the case. Or biphobia among lesbians, it deals with that as well. Or the homophobia and violence toward queer people that occurs in Jamaica, that is also covered here. It covers a lot of difficult topics, but I think does it so well. It is quite a steamy romance, but also a very emotionally vulnerable one, and I thought this was very good, so I would recommend checking it out if that sounds like something you would enjoy. So there you go, 17, because I had somehow forgotten about one, 17 Sapphic romance recommendations. Go forth and read all the Sapphic books because you should have plenty now. If you'd be interested in seeing me do a recommendation video like this for sci-fi and fantasy with Sapphic relationships, even if it's not like specifically a genre romance book, let me know in the comments down below because I could definitely do something like that. I have plenty of recs for that. For the purposes of this video, I just focused on things that were really genre romance, not just any book that had a sapphic relationship. But talk to me in the comments down below. Let me know any of your thoughts or feelings on anything I talked about in this video. And for question of the day, I would love recommendations. If you have a suggestion of a sapphic romance that you really loved, that you thought was fantastic, let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, it always helps if you give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.